Marvel and DC have been blacklisting conservative creators for years. Actually, in the case of Chuck Dixon, it's decades. And so they have to do everything they can to virtue signal that they don't actually want you to buy his stories, even as they're re releasing them. It's absolutely an insane thing that these corporations do. But the people who work at the companies now are not actually trying to look for sales or trying to look for profits. They're trying to enact a political agenda, and they're trying to keep the copyright going. That's all that they care to do. In the case of Moon Knight has now been made into a Disney Plus show, as we know, and is part of this whatever Marvel phase is. They're trying to re-release all the content, get a little bit off of that real quick. But the people at the company still just like, they can't. Chuck Dixon had so much to do with the character in the 90s and actually making Moon Knight great that they just want you to be sure that they don't condone Chuck. And we're going to get to that in just a second. My name is John Delarose. I was blacklisted before I could even get into a company like Marvel or DC. That's what I'm doing here. This is my, I think, 11th or 12th graphic novel that I've been putting out on Kickstarter for a while. Flying Sparks, the final volume, Ultralight Beams. Now, this is about two characters, Metagirl and Johnny, who have to face off against interdimensional lizard creatures. It's absolutely a wild ride. If you love action and adventures, the Chuck Dixon stuff from back in the day, you're absolutely going to enjoy this. So click the link in the description below. Order your copy today, my friends. Support the channel and support good comic books. That's what we're trying to do here. Thank you so much for checking things out. All right. As I said, Chuck Dixon's been blacklisted for a long time. Marvel and DC refuse to hire him, and it's all because of his political stances. They don't care how good his stories are, how well they sell. Gosh, I know they gave him and Graham Nolan a Bane Conquest maxi series over at DC when they were coming out with a movie regarding Bane in order to pacify him and Graham Nolan, the creators of the character, which was a great series. But besides that, they are just not allowed to work for these companies. I mean, there's a little hush-hush movement in there. And so, as I mentioned, they came out with a omnibus of Chuck Dixon's Mark Spector Moon Knight, as they've been re-releasing a lot of the old Moon Knight content that really a lot of people haven't read in a lot of years because they just have not been available. And here's what happened. They put this in the front of the book as reported by Chuck himself. Here it is. Marvel thought my Moon Knight omnibus needed a warning. That's right. I've never seen this before. This is brand new. Here it is. The content, this content contains, this is scary, guys, depictions of racism, sexual assault, and suicide. Reader discretion is advised. If you are struggling with thoughts of suicide or worried about a friend or loved one, please reach out to a counselor or someone you trust or dial 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Hotline. Now, they of course try to couch it as suicide and all that so you don't pay attention to it, exactly what they said, but look at how they start. Racism is the first thing that they want to let you know is, quote, depicted here. And now here's the deal. I mean, if you look at comics over the years and you look at any sort of content, there's violence, there's bad guys, there's bad things happening. That is kind of why superheroes exist and have to do something. Actually, the suicide as a sort of a prevention thing that happens has been done in a lot of superhero comics. I mean, how many times have we seen Superman save somebody who's trying to jump off a building and then talk them down off the ledge or whatever it is? It's happened all the time, and it's been something that's been a normal trope in comics, and the superhero saves them so they don't die. And then they talk them out of it, says, your life's worth living, I saved you, blah, blah, blah. And of course, the person turns over a new leaf. That is exactly what happens a lot in superhero stories. Now, this is a little bit darker. It is Moon Knight after all. But these sorts of things are always typically depicted in here. So why did this get a content warning when other books haven't in the past? It starts with the racism, sexual assault at the beginning. They're trying to clue you in their minds, they want to call Chuck Dixon a racist and a misogynist. Now, they don't want to actually go do that because, one, they have to sell this book, and two, Chuck could actually get them for libel because he's not either of those things, of course. But they want to try to tie those words to his work in order to make a political point and try to screw with people who are going to be reading this, and especially just screw with Chuck and just make him feel bad. I mean, that's the whole goal at the end of the day of wokeism, is to make everybody feel bad about not being as virtuous as they are, because these people feel so miserable about their own existences that they have to just try to project that onto somebody else. So this is a wild thing. I haven't seen this before, and I hope this kind of thing goes away. I mean, it's ridiculous. But hey, Chuck, I mean, I guess that's a good endorsement. If Marvel is saying your stuff is too triggery for the average person, must be worth reading. Now, I've read this content myself. They're great stories. I can recommend it wholeheartedly. I think Chuck did a great job on the character of Moon Knight. And I think the later Moon Knight stuff is really not nearly as good as the stuff that he did. Surprise, surprise. Chuck did great stuff on this and on The Punisher for Marvel also. And then, of course, his legendary work on Batman for DC, if you guys are not familiar with who he is. But that's the news of the day. Wow. Crazy stuff happening at these companies all the time. That's why we're making our alternatives. So please check out Flying Sparks, pre-order your copy in the description below, and leave a comment with what you think about this. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be back soon.